Stephen Adair is with us. Stephen, you are the Director of Local Church Services for United Methodist Communications. You're, I assume, a lifelong Methodist. I mean, you're pretty committed to the United Methodist tradition, and especially Glendale United Methodist Church, which we're going to talk about considerably today, and your experience there. From my perspective, you're really one of the most committed lay people I've come across. Like, I thought, man, if I had worked at a church that had a Stephen Adair in it, the things that would be possible would be phenomenal. And also, you are at least one of the co-creators, if not the creator, of the United Methodist Church Facebook page. Is that correct?
College, actually.
Yeah. Well, let's start there a little bit, because I think that's kind of a cool story. What inspired you to just kind of throw that page out there?
Yeah, so that story gets brought up from time to time, which is it's kind of a funny one. So we, I think Facebook pages were pretty new back then, between 2006 and 2010. And so there were some groups that were United Methodist branded that were probably just ran by who knows who. Maybe just church leaders or pastors or whatnot, but there wasn't like a page, and pages were starting to take off. And I created one for here at Glendale, and I was like, oh, there's not one for like the denomination yet. So started that. I think it got up to about 25,000 followers, and I'm just sitting in a house that I lived in Chattanooga while I think that was senior year of college, and not really knowing what to post on behalf of the United Methodist Church. So I would just post, where are you going to church this Sunday, or like get Bible verses or something. And then so Diane Degnan, who still works at UMCOM, she contacted me. I don't know how she got my phone number, tracked it down in the Methodist circles, United Methodist circles, I'm sure, and called me and said, hey, you have the most following, with this page. Can we take it over at UMCOM and utilize it for the denomination? And I said, sure. I don't know what to post anyway. So so took it on, and then a few positions. I got a job at UMCOM a couple years out of college, and I ended up, a couple years after working at UMCOM, taking that page back over, as that was my role to manage the social media for the denomination. So it was kind of a full circle moment there when I got that role at UMCOM.
Yeah. And you've been doing that for the denomination, but all the while you've been working in the local church as well with Glendale. And I think Glendale it's a great case study for us because of just where you are, that, it's not a huge church. I think a lot of our leaders can sympathize or, empathize with that kind of situation. But right now it's a growing church. And it kind of started out of a place of, needing to grow. We can put it that way, right? And I would love to look at some of the process that y'all have employed at Glendale to kind of live into the digital space and then kind of meet people there, but include them in the life of the church. So going really from kind of like the passive online consumer to kind of the involved member of Glendale UMC. So in starting that journey, can you describe what really the congregation of Glendale was like a few years ago?
Yeah, so probably I would say a good time frame is September 10th, 2017, and I'll come back to that date. But before that, I grew up actually in this congregation, and so lifelong, 34 years of seeing this group of people evolve and change. And so it was kind of the church of my grandparents' generation when I was a kid. Like, I was one of a few kids, ebbs and flows, like every church, of how many kids and youth and stuff. But really quite, I watched it continue decade after decade decline in attendance, and the people that were dying were not replaced or exceeded by the number of people that were coming in. And I think that we had a story that a lot of United Methodist churches still have today. I think that the story that we had is still the story of many churches today, to where it was that the greatest generation, I think is the name, that have passed away and were not replaced by new people. And that was just for a multitude of reasons. I think one of the main issues is that churches can get stuck in how we've always done it that way, not provide a place at the table for new people to really get involved or to really feel like they're making a difference. And I think our smaller churches and medium-sized churches have a lot of opportunity to provide people places to be involved in real tangible ways. That's not to say that large churches don't have those opportunities. So I don't want that to be heard. But I do think that our small and medium-sized churches do have extra opportunity to really let somebody walk in the door, and they can know that they're making such a difference on the trajectory of where the church is headed. Just by themselves as them, as part of the community. We had gotten down to probably about 20-25 in average worship attendance, early 2017. And the ones of us that were left were looking around at each other saying, this is not sustainable. It's not vital. What can we do? And especially after watching this church decline for so many years, and not in any negative way, just in a natural way of not being that openly invitational. I mean, everybody was always friendly. It wasn't that. Our churches are friendly for the most part. It's not a friendly issue a lot of the times, but there just wasn't anything super engaging going on. There wasn't anything new going on there. It was just, we were doing what we were doing. And so we made some changes, and all of these sound, and some of them are technological, in that area, but
kind of tech driven.
Yeah, but all very, very minute individually. But that September 10th, 2017 date, we put just a bunch of changes into place. And again, individually very small. We removed the call to worship. That's my thing. Like, we just start worship with a song, instead of please stand for the call to worship. I don't find that very exciting to really get into. I think probably some of the listeners will disagree with me on that one. But we removed that and just really started hitting it with a song. We added projectors. We updated all of our bulletins and all the printed materials that we have to update to make it look. It's not that, the traditional bulletin that had some sort of clip art copied on the front that probably a lot of our churches still kind of have, just to have a bulletin. We moved worship from 11 a.m. to 10 a.m. because I got some feedback from actually one of our coworkers that said I wouldn't even come check out Glendale because our worship's too late because I have young children that are up early. So I was like, okay, that stuck with me. So let's make that adjustment. Because if that's one parent's thing, it's probably other parents. They feel the same. We added communion every Sunday instead of the traditional, first Sunday of every month, which actually has no basis other than pastors moving around and couldn't be at a church every Sunday. But John Wesley said, do it as often as you can. So we added that back in. And we hit all of those one Sunday. Instead of making this, one change very slow at a time, the church can be so slow at moving forward or to change. And change is hard. We lost some people through some of those changes, but we have gained so much more and so many more from that. Through all those changes, and we did a lot of other things too. But those are just some of those initial changes that really got us kickstarted to move forward. And since then, we've added 75 new members. And so many more that have not joined. Joining a church is not, not everybody does that like they used to. But like so many people that have come to find this place as their home. For a church that was averaging 20 to 25 not very long ago, to add 75 new members plus all the people that haven't joined officially, that we don't have hundreds and hundreds of people, but that is great progress and a transformation for sure.
Has that upward curve of involvement stayed on the upward curve through the pandemic?
It has, of course. I mean, obviously there's challenges during a pandemic for everybody. I think what we have excelled at, because we've continued growing, even this year, we have another person joining this Sunday, which is the third Sunday in a row that we'll have a new member or new members, which is exciting. Is that we were already live streaming before the pandemic hit. So we kind of already had that, but we had a phone up in a window on a tripod. It wasn't super advanced, but we were at least already doing it. And I know that a lot of our churches have had to adapt and start doing that since the pandemic started. Since that phone in the window on on a tripod, we moved when nobody could be in the building. We moved to online only. for a while, and then we got a new. It's called Sling Studio. That's a really good next level for churches if you're listening and you're trying to figure out how to up that game from a phone sitting on a tripod in your sanctuary. Sling Studio, it's around $1,000, so you do have to have a little bit of a budget, but you still use phones on tripods, but you got different camera angles. It hooks right into your sound system. It just really is. It ups the game for sure if you're looking for that next level. But even since then, when people started coming back into the building, we still are wearing masks in here on Sunday mornings, but we are back in person. We had to figure out, how do we not have phones on tripods around the sanctuary? So we got the PTZ cameras mounted on the wall. We've got a whole computer set up behind the organ that's behind me over to the side that you can't see from in here, of course, that has different monitors, and it does all the streaming for us. So we've had to adapt along the way. I can only imagine for the churches that had nothing at the beginning and didn't really know where to go. And I know that a lot of our churches are still struggling with that. I think that we've still been growing because we continued to improve upon our live streaming and the ways we engage with people during worship through worship services.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I feel like that is a next step for a lot of our leaders out there. Like they have the online presence, they're putting the product out there, so to speak. I mean, I hate using that kind of word, but the service is there. What are you doing to engage with people? Because some of the people that you've had joining in your worship are all over the place, aren't they?
They are. So we have people in other states. We have people that haven't found a church near them that they identify with, or that they feel comfortable with, or whatever reason that they haven't found that church home that's near them, that have come to find and call Glendale their church home, even though we might be in a different state. We even have people in other countries, and I know many churches have experienced that. We're not alone in that. That technology has brought the world is my parish has really made the pandemic has made that a reality for many of our churches to be able to practice that and live into that. I think making sure, and this is so basic, and I say it on every training, on everything that I do, that I say to a church, so it probably didn't fit this because it's in a training, but to make sure that sound and like the audio and the video is great quality when you're live streaming, no matter if it's with Zoom or on Facebook or YouTube Live or whatever. That's like your first basic thing to make sure to have an audience want to worship with you online. I think when you come into the building during a worship service, I think you need to look at, and what we do is that we look at every aspect of our worship service. How can somebody who's worshiping with us online, they're not just watching, they should be an active participant of worship, even if they're sitting at home on their couch. We have a candle up there, we call it, I guess it's our Christ candle. But we light that at the beginning of every worship service and invite them to light their candle at home alongside us, that brings the light of Christ together, lit in both spaces, but together at the same time. I mean, that's super simple, but, just doing that and having that information when the live stream starts to go get your candle ready, in the comments, and having somebody engaging with those comments that are coming in saying, good morning. I see churches around here that don't engage with the people watching, that are worshiping with them at all. It's just people commenting and there's no engagement back. The church should be engaging back with the people who are worshiping. That is so important. Why would somebody come watch you if they get nothing, no back and forth, and they're just I don't know, participant's not even the right word, a viewer, an audience member. And so, the candle, I think one of the things that we do that I think is really important is during our prayer time, we actually invite people a few minutes before we get to our prayer time in our service, to share any prayer requests they have in the comments with us. And once we get to the prayer time, we already have those ready in the comments. And I get up and read those from Facebook and YouTube Live during the worship service. So not only does the congregation here in person hear those, and we can pray over those in community here, but they know that we in real time have taken their prayer request and have acted upon it here in the space, and they get to hear that if they're joining us online. And that's shared at the same time as people here in the congregation are lifting their prayer requests up too. So it's all just a combined effort, no matter where. It's the same experience in a way, no matter where you're worshiping with us from. And to make sure that the pastor or whomever, if there are prayer requests or anything spoken aloud that's not on a microphone in the congregation, needs to be repeated on a microphone so those at home can also hear as if they were sitting in a pew here in the space.
Okay. And are there other ways that you're inviting participation in the digital way throughout the service?
It just depends on the worship service. I think we don't really do a traditional passing of the peace here, but we have a welcome statement that we read out every Sunday. And at the end of that, the person who does that invites everybody here to stand up and greet your neighbor and go say hello to somebody you don't know, those sort of things. It's a little less high church maybe version of passing of the peace. We're pretty relaxed and laid back around here. But we also invite those who are joining us online to greet and welcome one another in the comments. So I think that that's an important thing. So anything that you do here that makes sense for somebody to do online, share prayer requests, greet one another, there's light the candle, and even in the offering during announcements or those times where you're telling people here, you're instructing people here in the space to do something or that something's available. You also need to be looking in the camera and saying, and if you're joining us online, this is what, you can do, or, whatever, but to really not only look into the camera from time to time, whether it's during the sermon, during the announcements, during something that really has to do with the people watching online, but to address them because they're there too. I think it's really easy for somebody watching at home to feel disconnected. So how do you connect from the church? How do you connect into their home? And
when you first started doing the online services way back pre-2020, how did you first get people like eyeballs on the services? Like, how did you grow it from just, two people watching who couldn't be there that particular Sunday into, in a sense, its own extension of the congregation?
Yeah, so that goes into some social media training. That's a whole nother. We could do a whole nother thing on that. But I think being effective on social media is the way that we have been successful in reaching new people. A lot of our website and our social media are the two main ways people find out about Glendale. So if your church's social media and website is not on point, and I know that there's a learning curve there for sure. It's not just easy to do that. I think that we have a reputation here at Glendale, although, I would say we have probably about 130 active people, I would say right now, and maybe a little bit more if I had to count. I haven't counted in a while, but I would say we have about 130. And that's a long way from 25. So, and it's a whole new congregation. Like those 25, there might be 5 of us left that have been here longer than like 4 or 5 years. So it's a whole new congregation. But I think making sure we have a good reputation out in the community or out in the United Methodist circles that we're a lot bigger than we actually are based on our social media presence. And I'll take that as a compliment. But I think we continued to grow that audience, and it was pretty natural. It's techniques like making sure if somebody likes your post to go invite them to like your page. That's how that was one of the ways. That's so easy. If they've engaged with you, you can invite them to like your page, and hopefully they will. But even boosting things. There's so much I could talk about that, but like making sure that you're utilizing that space and not just making it a bulletin board for your announcements, and it's not always got to be invitational. It's who are you? Like, you should be able to share online and through worship. And one of the things that I've heard, we've had quite a lot of people come, and then I say, how did you find out about us or whatever? Most people that answer this way, they don't say, I watched you last Sunday and I decided to come this Sunday. They say, I've been watching you for months. Months. It has taken months. I've heard that so many times, which is shocking. I thought, you in my mind, you'd check out a church maybe one week and then it's like, oh yeah, I'll go check them out next week. No, months. That's how we're making people to feel comfortable to actually walk into a church. to experience it in person. And I don't think that has anything to do with the pandemic. I think that has to do with people's comfort level with the church and making sure that they're walking into a space that they feel is right for them for whatever reason. And so, that's been so interesting to see that it's taken that long. And what's been nice is that I kind of follow up if it fits and it's not a weird kind of conversation or a point to make with somebody when I'm talking to them when they come. I say, I hope that what you've experienced here today was expected, was like from being with us online, like it felt the same as you were expecting it to feel.
It was congruent. Yeah. Okay.
And they say it totally was. And I'm like, that's then we're doing it right. If somebody comes into this space, of course it's different because you're in person and there's different, you have to interact with people and you're not just on your couch, but that's what your live stream and small groups, even, we haven't really talked about that, but like those experiences where somebody's joining you online should feel exactly the same as when they enter your space. And I think that authenticity has a lot to do with that, to where if you are preaching or teaching or sharing what your community is like and all about, then when somebody walks in that door, it better feel that way. And I think that's been a lot to our growth too, is that I feel like we are authentic here. We share what we believe, we share what we, fight for, and as a community of faith and what we care about. And when somebody walks in the door, they get that. So authenticity, I think, instead of just doing church because it's church and how you're supposed to do at 11 a.m. on a Sunday morning, and get dressed up and, whatever, I think authenticity is where the church can thrive. And I think sometimes it lacks that.
Do you have a sense of procedure when you first meet somebody online to then kind of ushering them towards like deeper engagement in the community of faith or even towards membership?
I think it's, I think being the engagement we do in comments, whether that's something basic as just welcoming them to be into this space, like if they say, good morning, I'm so-and-so, to really engage with them by name, to ask them those prayer requests. I think our engagement strategies in a worship service make people feel like they're cared about, even though they're at home and not here in the sanctuary, to where I think that is the bridge to get them to come. I think, there's obviously people that don't live anywhere around here. They may never even walk in the doors, but how are we making them feel like they're part of a community? Because if they're watching and they're worshiping alongside us, they're obviously seeking something. They might be seeking community, but how can we get them into a small group? How can we make that virtual space not just about worship? We all know that worship is not the best time to get to know people and develop relationships. Like you can have small talk, say, hi, how was your week? That sort of thing. But you can't really dive deep into relationship with one another. So how do you connect people outside of that, no matter if they live down the street and they're joining online or they live 5 hours away? How can you bring them into the community in tangible ways? And, one of those is small groups. We're starting life groups right now for the first time. Like we've had small group Sunday school. We've done all that stuff, that most churches do. We're starting these intentional core groups or life groups that we're calling them. And it's intentionally small groups. Well, there's going to be a virtual option for those who may not be able to be in a physical restaurant with a group of people or in somebody's home or whatnot. So looking at everything you do, what's the opportunity for somebody who might not walk through your door ever, the physical door? Okay. I don't know if that answered your question, but...
Yes. Yeah, it has begun. Yeah. The intentionality of just giving people a kind of a next step to go sounds very relevant, even from the aspect of like somebody who is just kind of fishbowling things online, to give them a next point of entry. That's good. You've had new members join each of the past 3 Sundays. Have any of those been folks who just started engagement like through the online worship service or through an online small group?
Yeah, so we have a young person who is joining this coming Sunday. They came up to me. We had a lunch after church actually yesterday, and they said, I think they had only been watching for like a month. So like that's one of the shorter ones that I had heard. Usually it's like multiple months. But it was like a month, and they heard our welcome message and just the aspects, and they were like, I need to come. I need to actually venture out and do it. And they've been coming for probably a month in person, so not very long. And after we had 2 people join yesterday, they came up, and not United Methodist background. We've had most of the people that have come to join this church have not been United Methodist background. It's been just a lot of other denominations and Catholicism and everywhere in between. So this person didn't know the protocol of how do I become part? Like I'm seeing these other people become a part of. How do I do that? And I said, you can do it anytime you want to. And they were like, how about next Sunday? And I was like, yes. So, I think that there's just that longing for community, and that is just one of many people that checked us out online first. And I think that the people that joined yesterday actually went physically to quite a few. I think we were the last church that they went to. So luckily they gave us a chance after quite a few others around here. And they decided to call us their home. But they did the more traditional go actually visit in person. But what we're seeing is that most people have checked us out online for a while, but definitely first before they've actually walked in the door. And I think that churches who are, I know we don't have all the financial resources here. We don't have a lavish building. We don't have all the money like some of our bigger churches around us do. So, I think doing what you can to make your online environment or opportunity as best as it can be in your context. I know we have rural churches that don't have internet. Like I know that is hard. That it's not one size fits all for everybody. And that it's harder for others to do that. But I think that whatever you can do to reach people on the outside through online worship, online small groups, social media, your website, those are the churches that are going to continue either reverse the trend of declining like we've done or continue growing. I think if it was without our social media, our website, and without, especially through the pandemic, our online experience, we wouldn't be growing today at all. I know that for a fact. It's God has been in the midst of all of this, of course. So I don't want to say that it's impossible, but we are also given the skills and the abilities to help foster relationship and growth in a community of faith.
I think that platformed you pretty well to move into the role that you're currently in as the director of local church services. What are some of the most consistent requests or questions that you're fielding within that role? What's coming to your team?
Yeah, so the pandemic, it's been interesting. Our team normally on a regular basis helps churches with social media strategy, branding, logo development, websites. We build websites for local churches. So shameless plug here, if you need some help, resourceumc.org/LCS. We would love to help. But during the pandemic, of course, we continue doing that work. And there's definitely a place for our social media and our website work and even branding and logo stuff to still be important. So our team still does that day to day. But it's been interesting. We've tried to really adapt what we do, and we continue to try to adapt what services, what products, what can we offer that's going to help churches in today's reality, whether that's the pandemic of today or just the need for technology and online engagement work that's going to be needed forever. A church, just because if this pandemic ended today and everything was fine, churches still need to be online doing it well. So that work doesn't end no matter what the current reality is. We've helped churches with Zoom. We've helped, probably over 1,300 churches with Zoom over the last couple of years to make sure that they can connect with their congregations. We help with very limited, I don't want to say we help with technology solutions like cameras and stuff, because it's not a one size fits all. Every sanctuary is different. Camera needs are different. Like there's just not an easy solution there, unfortunately. but we've helped some churches with some basic that next level from the iPhone maybe to a Mevo or something. So we've helped some churches with that. So it's definitely shifted a little bit, but we continue to learn, what churches need and how we can help best.
And what are maybe some of the questions that you wish you were getting as you look towards the future and the needs of the future church? What are some of the questions that you wish that you were getting, but you're not quite getting yet?
I think a lot of our churches, especially the smaller and medium ones, and I know this is nothing negative. The pastors have so much on their plates in that size church. They don't have staffs to do, they don't have a communications paid staff member, and they don't have all the associate pastors to do multiple things. So I know it's hard. I think for our churches, a lot of our churches still don't see the value in marketing, in effective communication outside of the church, outside of their own people. They're still internal, they're insular. I don't know if that's the right word, but like they still look inside. And still don't provide a place at the table. Like that's what everybody here who's been hurt by a church before, and this is their first re-entry back. Like there's so many people like that. There are so many people outside the walls of this church that are looking. And it's our job to provide that space and that place for people to find and restart, in a lot of times, at least in our case, restart that relationship with God that they had lost along the way. And it was at the hands of Christians and of the church for whatever reason that they had been put out or just disconnected for whatever reason. It's our place to do that, and they're out there. It's unlimited, literally unlimited out there. And I think our churches don't see the value in social media on the effectiveness of a Facebook page, or they don't have the capacity to do it. That's a lot of it too, but get a college student. And I know not all of our churches are around a college, but like find somebody. If you can't do it, there's somebody who can do it. I think putting some intentionality behind having a good website, which we can help with, or social media strategy, which we can help with. I think it's just reaching out. It's available. And just making sure that that's a priority, and not doing we've always done it this way. And I will say that is hard to do. For churches, it is nearly impossible, I think. And I think a church has sometimes, actually a lot of times, especially our smaller ones, have to get near death to be resurrected, to grow, to do new things, because we've always done it that way, and there's roadblocks and there's barriers into doing church in a fresh, new, not even changing the core principles at all, or the core beliefs, just doing it just different, or in a more modern way. I don't know. And I'm not saying even contemporary worship, just being available and letting, I think letting somebody walk in, what's their passions? What are your missions at your church? Are you doing the same 5 things because you've done them the last 20 years? That person that walks in, that might not be what they're passionate about, but providing the space that says, what are you passionate about? We'll do it. We'll make it happen. I think just being one very small example, I think having that mindset has launched us to where we are today, and our trajectory just keeps going. I mean, during the pandemic, the last 2 years, I think this year we've added 19 members year to date, and last year I think it was a little slower just because everything was a little hectic the first year of the pandemic. I think we added like 11 or 12, but that's still positive growth. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of our churches are struggling we not that long ago were the church that maybe we had 1 member join, but we had like 5 people die, it was always a negative. And I know a lot of our churches still live in that today. So I think letting barriers go, and that you might ruffle some feathers, but I challenge our churches, and I know it's harder in some congregations than others. You might ruffle a few feathers, and it might be about the check of the collection plate that goes in the collection plate. But whatever barriers there are internally to let you grow, try to shed those. That's obviously different in everybody's context of what that means, but that saved this place. When there were no barriers any longer of what we should do, that's when we took off.
Well, I think Glendale has taken off because of a passion for growth, and for seeing the church reach out to new people. So with that in mind and taking the conversation back to Glendale, like, what barrier are you moving down next, or what are you staging next to continue the growth?
Yeah, the life groups that I mentioned earlier, that's a way of intentional small group discipleship. I think we're really good about getting people in the door. We're really good about getting people to join without being pressury about it. I think we had one person transfer their membership a couple weeks ago, 2 joined yesterday, and this person for next Sunday was just excited and was like, how do I become part of this? Because of seeing that, I think and it kind of snowballs, the excitement snowballs. I think I think we have growing pains, but they're all good problems. Do we have enough opportunities for people to be involved? Do we have enough, groups, which is why we've instituted this life group model of, making sure that everybody, or at least those that want to be, are part of a group to really deepen relationships in this congregation, because it's a whole new group of people here on a Sunday morning. That's awesome, but the next level of that is making sure that people stick around because they've come to care about one another, and they've cared. They feel that this is not only just, oh, this is where my membership is, but they feel a sense of purpose here, and that we give this space for them to feel purpose. The people that joined yesterday, one of them is the one that brought the life group idea from a church that they were in Atlanta, which is Eastside United Methodist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. They brought that concept, and we were like, we've been looking for a discipleship model. Like, what's that next step of getting people together? And they brought that, and it was like, it was a God thing that came in when we were like, how do we get all these new people that don't know each other really well to deepen relationship? And they brought that. And then the other one that joined already started a food drive. And if I turn the camera around, there's boxes in the pews of all this food for a local nonprofit. And he wanted to do that. And we did it because he was like, have we done a food drive lately? And we were like, no, we haven't. The pandemic, it's hard to do certain things. We already did that. And they walked in August. And here we are, middle October. They've already brought 2 concepts, two things here. So it's allowing the space for people to contribute, to share their gifts.
Yeah. Oh, well, Stephen, this has been incredibly practical, but even more so, it's been inspiring in terms of just kind of sharing in your passion. And I think some of the witness of Glendale has been a witness to how passion inspires more passion. So if you're listening, you want to get inspired by that too, you can reach out to Stephen's team at resourceumc.org/ is it LCS?
LCS, yes.
Local Church Services. Cool. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for sharing your story and your expertise with us.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.